Walk into any modern gym. You'll see people chasing strength with machines, supplements, and detailed programs. Some make progress fast, but lose it just as quickly. Skip training for a couple of weeks and lifts drop. A month off, and most people feel noticeably weaker. Now, imagine a Viking farmer or sailor. No structured workouts, no protein powders, no adjustable dumbbells. Yet the strength they built stayed with them for decades. They didn't just peak, they maintained. How did they do it? How did people living 1,000 years ago keep strength that lasted a lifetime while ours fades in a matter of weeks? The answer has nothing to do with genetics or toughness. It's about biology and the daily inputs we've removed. Section 1. The modern strength problem. To understand why Viking strength lasted, we have to understand what most modern strength actually is. In a gym, you choose a fixed movement, load it heavy, and perform it for short sets with rest between them. You isolate a region. You chase numbers. That works to create visible change quickly because intense signals switch on short-term adaptation. Muscle fibers repair and thicken. Nerves learn to fire them more efficiently. But the body is economical. Tissue that costs energy is only kept if it's used often. If the stimulus shows up for 45 minutes and disappears for 23 hours, the body learns that the added mass is optional. You can see it in how fast a layoff reverses progress. Stop the workouts and the body starts to shed what it doesn't need. Viking strength didn't come from spikes of effort. It came from a constant background signal. Move, lift, carry, row, climb, repeat. They worked with awkward loads at irregular angles. They carried wet nets that got heavier as water ran out. They dragged timbers that shifted as they moved. They balanced on slick planks, lifted in cramped boats, braced against wind and waves. Every task recruited the whole system: hands, forearms, shoulders, back, hips, legs, trunk, often at once. Modern physiology has a name for this: chronic mechanical loading, low to moderate stress, applied frequently across multiple joints and tissues. That kind of loading doesn't just add muscle, it thickens tendons. It urges bone to add mineral where strains pass through it. It builds capillaries, so blood reaches working fibers easily. It trains the nervous system to coordinate complex movement without conscious thought. Because the signal is delivered for hours instead of minutes, and because it happens daily instead of occasionally, the body treats it as normal and builds infrastructure that is hard to dismantle. Archaeology lines up with this. Viking humeri, the long bones of the upper arm, often show pronounced deltoid tuberosities, the sites where the deltoid tendon anchors. That means years of shoulder loading. The glenoid fossae, the shoulder sockets, can be slightly expanded and reshaped by continuous pulling and bracing. Vertebrae show evidence of remodeling from repeated compressive forces that the spine tolerated and adapted to. The femur cortices, the dense outer shell, are thick in many specimens, reflecting habitual loading from walking on uneven ground while carrying. None of these changes are about visible muscle. They are the record of a signal repeated thousands of times over decades. A modern program can copy parts of this with farmers' carries, sled drags, rows, and loaded walking. In a gym, you do carries for 4 sets and move on. In a Vikings day, you carry until the work is done, and the work is most of the day. That difference in frequency turns short-term adaptation into long-term architecture. Section 2. The endurance engine. If strength were only about peak force, the Vikings would have lost it whenever life slowed. But their strength sat on top of endurance, and endurance is what biology holds onto most tightly. Rowing a longship is the clearest example. 30 men at oars, pulling together for hours, not sprinting, not struggling under maximal load. Just steady, sub-maximal force repeated over and over. That trains the heart to pump more blood with each beat, a change called increased stroke volume. It expands the network of capillaries feeding muscles. It nudges muscle cells to grow more mitochondria, the little factories that make energy. It improves the enzymes that burn fat for fuel so that effort can continue without draining limited sugar stores. The same thing happens on land. Carrying sacks of grain across a field, walking rocky paths with a load, climbing slopes with timber on the shoulder. The heart and lungs learn to supply steady work. The muscles learn to accept it. This is what modern coaches call the base. training in the zone where you can talk in sentences, where you're warm but not gasping, where you can go on for hours. If you have the base, your strength is reusable. You can do work today and work again tomorrow. You can miss a week because a storm kept you in, then pick up where you left off without a cliff-like drop. Without the base, strength is a peak balanced on a narrow point. Remove the weekly sessions and there's nothing beneath to hold it up. Skeletal evidence lines up with that picture. The ribcage is more than a basket for lungs. It remodels with breathing patterns and with the action of muscles between the ribs. In remains from maritime populations, the ribs can show thickening consistent with heavy respiratory work. The clavicles in rowers may be robust from sustained upper body effort and bracing. Shoulder blades can show enthesophytes, bony growth at tendon attachment sites, from repetitive pulling. In the lower body, long-distance walking on uneven surfaces encourages curved, long bones that better handle bending forces. All of this paints the same picture, a life that kept the aerobic system running in the background all day long. Strength tethered to that system lasts because the system itself is slow to erode. You can see a modern version in retired endurance athletes who keep an unusual capacity for years after formal training ends. Their engine never goes completely quiet because daily life still includes movement, and the base was thick to begin with. Section 3. The chemistry of real fuel. You cannot build durable strength without the raw materials to repair tissue. The Vikings ate what their environment offered, and in doing so, they hit the targets. Modern nutrition spends a lot of words trying to describe. Along the coasts and fjords, fish made up a huge share of protein intake. Cod, herring, salmon, and mackerel carry omega-3 fatty acids that lower systemic inflammation and support healthy cell membranes. They carry vitamin D in their fat and liver, a key player in calcium metabolism and bone health at latitudes with long winters. Inland, cattle, sheep, goats, and pigs provided meat, fat, milk, and organs. Organ meats are concentrated sources of iron, vitamin A, and B vitamins, useful for red blood cell production and tissue repair. Bone broths and stews, common in cold climates that value every part of the animal, dissolve collagen and minerals into the cooking liquid, supplying the building blocks of tendons and cartilage along with calcium and phosphorus for bone. Carbohydrates came from barley, oats, rye, and root vegetables like turnips, parsnips, and later beets. These starches digest slowly and pair well with long labor, keeping blood sugar stable rather than spiking and crashing. Berries and wild greens added vitamin C and polyphenols, plant compounds with antioxidant and anti-inflammatory roles. Fermented foods were not a trend but a necessity. Sour milk, skyr, and other cultured dairy. Fermented vegetables and fermented fish preserved calories for winter and supplied bacteria and acids that help digestion and mineral uptake. Salt was a preservative and an electrolyte, the sodium needed for nerve signaling and muscle contraction, especially in long bouts of sweating and cold exposure. Drying and smoking fish concentrated protein and minerals into portable bricks of fuel. This was not a high-calorie buffet. It was enough, and enough of the right things. Protein with complete amino acids to repair fiber, fats that the body uses to build hormones and membranes, carbohydrates matched to daily output, minerals that give bone its strength and let muscles contract. In modern diets, you can get as many calories as you want with very few of those repair materials. You can feel full while starving your connective tissue. You can meet a macro target while missing the micronutrients that make the macro useful. The Vikings did the opposite. Fewer total calories than modern abundance. More of the ones that matter for building and maintaining systems. Evening meals after long work pair protein and starch with fatigue, encouraging the body to channel nutrients into repair while sleep coincides with darkness. Morning meals happen before the day's output, not hours after. The rhythm writes itself. Fuel, work, rebuild. In modern settings, snacking around the clock blunts that rhythm. Late light shifts hormones and pushes sleep later. Section 4. The strength of stress. The Vikings didn't control the climate. They didn't ask the sea to stay calm. Those conditions forced their bodies to run systems modern people rarely recruit. Cold exposure teaches blood vessels to constrict and dilate responsively. Over time, that improves circulation and may encourage a modest increase in brown adipose tissue, fat that burns energy to make heat. It changes the subjective experience of cold from emergency to stimulus. Periods of low food availability teach the body to swing toward fat metabolism, protecting lean tissue. Working under load changes not just muscle, but connective tissue. Collagen fibers thicken and align along lines of stress. Joints learn to handle compressive and shear forces without inflaming. Sleep synchronized with dark controls the timing of repair signals. Melatonin rises in darkness. Growth-related signals cluster in early night. Waking with light resets the clock. Summer and winter shift the lengths, but not the order. You don't have to name a hormone to benefit from the pattern. You just have to keep the pattern. Section 5. The Social Engine. A Viking longhouse was a machine for distributing work. Families and crews aligned their schedules with tasks that required many hands. A longship does not move unless oars hit the water together. Felling a tree, dragging it to a building site, notching it, lifting it into place. None of that happens without coordination. That coordination keeps effort steady and repeatable. It removes the modern question, do I feel like it? It replaces it with, we are doing this now. Shared physical effort changes experience. Pacing smooths out. People synchronize breathing and cadence without thinking. The attention that in a gym would be on discomfort is now on the task or the rhythm call. Shared exertion releases endorphins that reduce pain perception and increase a sense of bonding. You don't need novelty to stay engaged if the crew's job changes with the season. Sailing in summer, harvesting in autumn, repairing and crafting in winter, trading and hauling in spring. Strength for its own sake is easy to postpone. Strength because your family needs wood to not freeze, or your crew needs your oar to not drift, is a different category. It's not a motivational speech. It's an understanding wired into the day. My part matters. That understanding gives physical repetitions an extra layer of meaning. Repetitions with meaning become identity. Identity sustains behavior when mood would not. Section 6. Aging without collapse. The cleanest test of any strength system is what happens after 40, 50, 60. In many Viking graves, older skeletons still show robust cortical bone, the dense outer layer, thick in the femur and tibia. They still show well-developed ridges where tendons anchor to arms and shoulders. There is wear, yes, osteophytes around joints, healed fractures, compressed vertebrae in some. But there is also evidence of continued use. Remodeling that indicates load persisted late in life. That shouldn't surprise us. Bone responds to strain. If strain continues, bone stays. Tendons respond to pull. If pull continues, collagen stays organized. Muscle responds to nerve input and demand. If demands continue, nerves keep driving output and fibers resist atrophy. Retirement from physical tasks happens early. Commutes replace walking. Chairs replace ground sitting. Lifts replace stairs. Our bodies respond accordingly. We call it aging, but it's mostly detraining. The body obeying a new order. Conserve. In Viking communities, older individuals shifted tasks but didn't surrender them. They might row shorter stints, teach younger hands, repair nets, sharpen tools, cut smaller wood, tend animals, walk the same paths at a slower cadence. Hormones that respond to sleep regularity, daylight, and effort stayed within functional ranges longer. Appetite followed work, work followed daylight. The loop stayed intact. Even burial goods tell the same story. Tools interred with the dead show wear patterns from long use. They are not ceremonial fakes. They are implements a person used for years and kept functional. That's a metaphor for the body that used them. Not pristine, not perfect, but capable until the end. So, why did Viking strength last a lifetime while yours fades in weeks? Because their world taught the body to keep strength every hour. Ours teaches the body to let it go. They lived in a training program they didn't choose. We have to choose one on purpose. That isn't nostalgia. It's practicality. Movement that doesn't end, loads that are awkward and real, food that builds tissue, stress that's enough to teach but not enough to break, people who need you to keep going, roles you don't abandon just because a calendar changed. If this reframed how you think about lasting strength, subscribe for more deep dives into human performance that emerges from daily life, not gadgets. Tell us which old systems you want to unpack next. And remember, strength isn't a program you run for a few weeks, it's a life you build and repeat. The Vikings didn't chase it, they lived it. You can too.